do you reckon it's the battery?
Okay, have you tried, like...
Just shut up! Let me think!
No, just try
Come on, you fucking twat!
Hey!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another Winchester Wednesdays. I am your host, Winchester572, and I wouldn't mind seeing an alien at some point. But anyways, going on with our interesting thing of seeing extraterrestrials. Would ponies be considered extraterrestrials? Especially on Earth? Well, that's what we've got for you today, with yet another fanfiction reading. We're trying again, trying to do that reading from the 3 weeks ago that honestly I had thought we had completed, but apparently we didn't. So, yes. Yeah. Now we have everybody here, and we shall be continuing with it. So, without further ado, I will introduce you to everybody in the call.
Oh.
Hello, people in the call.
Hello.
Guten Tag.
Okay. So, first off, with introductions, we'll start off with my lovely co-host, Crazy Matt Captain.
So, we're here and ready for my backup plan where everything explodes today, right? I have the game where it's all just cat puns. We can play that.
Alrighty. Bye, literally everyone else. we worked so hard to gather everyone here.
That reminds me of last time we got together.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm actually thinking that the cat puns game would be good to have actual people around to feel the groans.
Yeah, but I don't know what the people we have if they'd be willing to groan or not.
It's cat puns. It's beautiful.
I don't have the beer to do this right now.
No. You'll be forewarned about it when it happens, maybe.
I'm sorry, Shug. I might need a lot more whiskey before I do that.
All I have is water.
I can't read tonight because I'm choking on my own spit.
Wonderful. Well, next up we have our wonderful narrator who isn't choking on spit. Well, I guess the narrator's choking on spit. I meant to say fanfic editor, Double R Forest.
It has been so long since I've been called in for editing. I've resorted to having to edit clot fix in order to get my editing fix. I hope you're happy.
Oh my!
So stay tuned for Winchester Wednesdays After Dark airing.
Never.
Oh, we're that sort of stream now.
No, not this one. This isn't after midnight. We have to wait till after midnight and on a different channel, probably.
Oh,
Yeah,
fine.
the story that
I'll
features
go back in
Celestia in
the
her
box.
big.
It's after midnight somewhere.
God damn it, Sora. So, I know the perfect place to stream. So I recently got stream that. I recently got access to my church's YouTube channel and Facebook page.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a great place. Hello, y'all. We're here to talk about the joy of believing on Jesus and putting trust in our Lord. And I would like to commemorate this wonderful endeavor here by reading Twilight Sparkle Gets Her expanded gloriously by.
Amen now, y'all. Amen. Hallelujah.
That sounds perfect.
And so she entered the room, and Big Mac looked to her with a side eye.
Oh, okay, that's enough.
I didn't expect to see you here, said Big Mac.
Also, since you all need Jesus, I'm giving you this in the chat.
Sweet. Do we get Jesus? Oh.
Oh God. So yeah. Speaking of people that need Jesus and has been introducing herself already, we have our wonderful narrator, Death by Forest Rain.
Jesus.
Sorry, thought I was muted.
Well, I'm watching this Jesus thing now, and there's a lot of hands. There's just hands oh my God, the hands are making the fish go wild. Anyway, what am I
Be sure to read the comments. Be sure to read the comments. It's fun.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this for the time being, and then I will read it with the comments later. Wait, what? I forget what I'm doing. What do we do for introductions usually?
Introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Forest Rain. I'm a bad influence. Carry on.
We make bad jokes. I'm pretty sure that's what we do.
I mean, you're not wrong. Alrighty, next on to Sora.
Why are there so many hands in that video? Hi.
It's one of their answers there.
It's very distracting. I didn't want
very
to click
handy,
it,
yes.
and it's
It's just hands.
It's just Jesus.
I can't right now. But hello, everyone.
Wait, why are there 3?
And next up we have Cinder.
And wonderful lines to take completely out of context later. Hello, I'm Cinderscript. And I guess I'm here. I'm not nearly drunk enough for this.
I think that's the same with all of us. I've gotten 3/4 of the way through this margarita thing, and it's not doing anything yet.
Yeah, I
Not
think
drunk
it's
enough?
one-
Perfect time for cat
entirely
puns.
Whatever little bartender that
I'm
lives in my
entirely
fridge.
sober.
Whatever bartender that lives in my fridge forgot to put the vodka in my orange juice.
Sober is the perfect time. Cat puns.
Well, you need to fire your fridge tender
Mm.
and get a new one.
I mean, I just had to replace the microwave because it was possessed.
Yeah, that video scared the crap out of me.
I was fully
So scary about Jesus.
Jesus is not a microwave, double R. Grow up.
What?
I thought that's what miracles were about.
Ugh.
My brain missed something. Why are we... What? Microwave? What?
Apparently, according to double R, Jesus is a microwave.
That's
Okay.
my understanding.
Jesus is a microwave.
From my combined exposure to Catholicism, Lutheranism, Pentecostalism, and Mormonism, that's my understanding.
So we should put our head in the microwave?
Yes.
Is that how we discovered Jesus?
Yes.
I'm coming, Jesus.
Right now.
I mean, I've got another partially faster way to discover Jesus.
Yeah,
No.
that too.
Let's not.
You know, we haven't been going for 8 minutes, and this has already devolved into a clusterfuck. Congratulations.
New record. Academy record. Achievement
There,
unlocked.
I've used my
Found
one
Jesus.
F-bomb for the night.
Ah, damn it, you used it up.
What did we use up?
Oh, fuck.
We used up our one fuck for the night.
Oh, I thought we already used up our luck. I mean, come on, Circuit got the YouTube working right. And
Well,
he never gets things right, apparently.
well, let me go contact somebody, and I'll see if I can get more luck in this server.
You can't get any luck. Where would you go
Sorry.
for luck?
That was my attempt at laughing.
I was gonna say, Forrest Ray knows who I'm talking about.
It was a funny.
Is it Luck Rock?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I got it!
Congratulations, Sora. Not only did you find Jesus tonight, you also found Luck Rock.
I have to say, do I have to
Can
just
somebody
go
please
with
quote that
for-
and put that on Twitter? Because, oh my god.
So, do we finish this book tonight? Is this the last? Oh,
Oh, it's the second to last one.
It appears Double R Force has got his head stuck in his desk.
yes.
Well, only one way to get him out.
No, you heathen! You've got to do it right. Now, where's the chainsaw?
Oh. Reminds me of childhood when Dad used to chase me around the campsite.
Chase me around the campsite with a chainsaw.
I don't think that's a very good childhood memory.
I mean, I used to chase other people around campsites with chainsaws when I was in Scouts.
Okay, moving on.
Hold up.
Anyway,
Winchester, Winchester, there are 5 ponies on screen, but there are 6 of us in call.
I think he sawed one of us in half with a chainsaw. It was probably Sora.
Well, as I'm waiting on things.
And by the way, Force Rain, this is the second to last chapter. There's sort of an epilogue, if you will, after this.
Epilogue.
Yep, it's sort of, yep.
So
was
I'm
gonna-
assuming that Sora is supposed to be Tempest here, and Cinder is also Tempest.
No, Cinder is just Tempest. Sora is off in the... Sora is the first... Or no, Sora is the second W.
No,
you-
I'm the left ass cheek. That's fine. I'll just
You have Calamity. You could just throw Calamity up there.
I don't have Calamity. I mean, I guess she could be Larsus for the night.
Yeah, that works.
I don't think that would end well. I don't think I could contain the goldfish.
Don't worry. Larsus doesn't even try.
Sorry, I just have to light a candle here to get rid of all the sin. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work. I'm still here.
Mm,
No, that's Cinder. That's a difference.
well, you're not here, so I guess it's working.
Oh yes, my
Yeah.
one weakness.
Not
My
Physical
one
location.
weakness.
there.
Yes, the fabric of space time.
Well, guess what? We just brought up somebody who can change that.
What?
Did you fucking abduct Stephen Hawking from the grave?
No, we mentioned Lars's goldfish.
Oh, we did? We mentioned Larsis.
Well, yeah. Then Cinder brought up that she couldn't control Lars's goldfish.
No one can control the goldfish. The
Yeah, I mean,
goldfish
Lars is-
controls you.
All right. Well, is it time to start reading the cast list?
I suppose. Give me a second to switch over.
Also,
mean, the
Source
first-
is BRB.
Yeah, but the first like page or two is all me anyway, so I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, right. I should actually note down who I've got.
This is Project Sunflower by Hoopy McGee, Chapter 30, Aftershocks. Today, CMC will be reprising his role as Aaron, as well as reporter 1 and 5. Why do I always remember this when I'm in the middle of doing this? I'm sorry. I just have to open up my thing so I can hear myself for this particular situation. Somebody say something stupid. So that I...
Butts.
Something stupid.
Oh, thank you.
Want to buy a fetish?
Yes, please.
What you want? I got everything. Come on. You name it, I have it.
All of them.
Check one.
All of them?
All right. That's enough for now. That's enough,
Conducting business.
stupid.
I need the money.
That's-
Don't worry, my customers, damn it.
Yeah,
That's enough, stupid.
I'm just trying to get all these bundles of sticks, you know?
I'm conducting business here.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
who do you think you are?
Oh, it's so good. All right. I think I've gotten this figured out now. Conducting business here. Oh, I'm sorry. That's too good. CMC will be reprising his role as Aaron, as well as reporter 1 and 5. Double R will be playing Twilight Sparkle again, as well as male TV reporter and reporter number 3. There's a lot of reporters in this episode. Cinder will be playing Pinkie Pie, female TV reporter, Maggie Henson, Robert Thompson, and reporter number 4. Sora will be playing Rarity, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Buckeye, and Susan Chang. Winchester will be playing, reprising his role as John Olson, as well as reporter number 2 and director. And me, Forrest Rain, will be playing Lynn Olson, Princess Celestia, and your narrator. This is Project Sunflower by Hoopy McGee. Chapter 30, Aftershocks. When she finally had an idle moment, Erin reflected that her sense of time was now completely off-kilter. This day seemed to have lasted for far longer than it possibly could have. It had felt like a long day even before she'd gone through the gate hours earlier to find the sun just rising in China. And now it was just after midnight, and it felt like days had passed since she'd last slept. Medical staff from Canterlot had been on call on the equestrian side of the gate, rushing through once they were given the all clear. It had taken Erin some time to convince her father that the danger was past and that he could stop trying to pull Erin back through the gate. At Erin's suggestion, he had been put to use helping get her friends back through to Equestria, picking up the unconscious ponies and placing them on the gurneys for transfer to the castle infirmary. Shining Armor himself had to be ordered to get some rest. The doctor had to insist, pulling rank on the obviously exhausted unicorn who'd been hovering over his unconscious sister. Erin had timidly offered to watch over Twilight for him, and had been surprised by the captain's obvious gratitude. Erin had stayed in the infirmary with her friends, anxious and jittery, until a frustrated nurse had kindly but firmly ejected her, promising that news would be brought to the Harmonics compound should any pony's conditions change. She'd gone to tell Shining that her sister was stable and sleeping, only to find out that he, himself, was deep in a well-deserved state of sleep. Erin had then dragged her hooves all the way back to the Harmonics gateway, reluctantly deciding that she should at least try to get some sleep herself, even though the day's events had left her head and heart whirling. The atmosphere of cautious joy on the earth side of the gate prompted a small smile on Erin's features. She stopped to listen as the scientists and engineers reported the latest news loudly across the room to one another. A reverent hush fell over the room as satellite images were brought in and thrown up on one of the larger screens on the wall, with people crowding to look at the patch of gray that had replaced the dull black of the tide. After a few minutes, they began whispering to each other excitedly, keeping their voices low, as if afraid to disturb this moment with too much exuberance, or to tempt fate by suggesting that the tide might truly be finished. Erin looked dully at the screen, feeling numb. It was an ugly sight, she decided. Not as ugly as the tide was, but the roughly circular gray mark on the Earth's surface wasn't pretty in the least, surrounded as it was by the greens and browns of the living Earth and the blue of the sea. She wondered idly if that part of the world would ever recover, or if it would always be scarred that way. She wandered away, jaw cracking as she yawned, realizing that she didn't know what had happened to her parents. The last she could recall of seeing them was in the Canterlot infirmary, but she now realized that she hadn't actually seen them for an hour at least. She decided to forgive herself for not paying attention, since she'd been a little preoccupied by the fact that her friends weren't waking up. That, and the other things that she preferred not to think about. Erin stumbled her way back to her room, deciding that she was both hungry and too tired to bother eating anything before bed. She felt like she should be happier than she was, but her mind felt muffled and indistinct, and the possibility of the tide's destruction seemed too unreal to accept right now. She was more than half certain they'd find out that the rock they saw was just a thin shell, that the tide was still growing underneath, as deadly and implacable as ever. The possibility of the tide being gone was a concept that was so incredibly huge that the impact on her life wasn't something that she could even begin to wrap her head around at the moment. That her friends had so completely exhausted and endangered themselves for her planet's sake made her feel both proud of them and incredibly guilty that she had taken such a huge risk. And as for Malachite, she shook her head, deciding that she was too tired to think about that right now. Sleep first, worry in the morning. She was nearing the corner to her room in the Harmonics compound when a pair of familiar voices stopped her in her tracks. Her parents were outside her room once again, sitting on the floor by the doorway. Erin smiled and trotted around the corner.
Mom, Dad, hi. It seems like the tide might be gone. Isn't that amazing?
Hi, sweetie. Her mother stood up. Erin froze as her parents shared a look. Something was up, and she wasn't sure if she had the energy to deal with it right at the moment.
Can we come in?
Well, I was thinking of getting some sleep.
Erin trailed off, seeing that her parents wouldn't be deterred.
Sure, come on in.
Everyone entered her main room, and Erin immediately picked up on the awkward atmosphere. A small ember of annoyance started to flare up. She was burned out at the moment. After going through the chaos of the shopping trip, the encounter with Malachite, her friends being unconscious, and everything that had happened with the tide, she felt tapped out, running on empty. She decided to simply get to the point.
So, what's going on?
Well, first of all, are you all right? We saw those glowing sprite things. They didn't hurt you, did they?
No. My friends were able to take them out before they got close enough to threaten me.
Those sprites. Were they from that thing called malachite, right?
Erin trailed off. They knew something. She could see it in their faces. Erin's eyes narrowed, and she almost screamed with frustration.
What did Maggie tell you?
Maggie didn't tell us anything. She told us what those sprites were and what they could do. She refused to tell us anything else, but we were able to draw some conclusions when we saw how terrified you were of them.
I wasn't scared.
We saw the video, honey. You were more frightened than I've ever seen you before.
Erin looked away, glaring at the corner of her bed. Her eyes felt hot, and she wondered angrily why her parents couldn't just leave well enough alone, let her get the sleep she needed. She pressed her lips together in a frown and didn't say a thing. Look. Lynn put a hand on her shoulder, and Erin nearly jerked away from her. She then began stroking her daughter's mane. Erin, you don't have to talk about it right now if you don't want to.
Nothing to talk about.
We don't believe that. Look, I know you're tired. We don't have to talk about it tonight, okay? We just want you to know that we'll always love you, and that whatever happened, it won't change that. You can rest now, and we can talk about it later, okay?
Why? Why can't you just let it be? Now, this is not the time. Twilight and the others...
We'll be fine. You know that as well as I do.
Nothing happened to me. Nothing.
Burning pain in her limbs, her skin torn and bleeding. Aching hooves cracked and bleeding as well, rocks and debris wedged tightly into them, causing a jolt of agony up her leg every time a hoof hit the forest floor. A crack in her ear, a voice in her ear that she couldn't shut out, and the absolute terror of not being able to control her own body. Erin slumped to the floor, holding on to her emotions through an effort of will.
Why are you making me this again?
Her mother rushed to her side, hugging her around the neck, and that was the key that unlocked the floodgates. Erin cried like a baby in her mother's arms, and the stricken look on her father's face made her cry even harder, thinking of how her pain had now hurt him as well. It took half an hour for her to calm down enough for her to finally be able to tell her parents everything. It hurt at first. It hurt to remember again, and it hurt even more to tell them, to see their reactions to what had happened to her. But the more she talked, the faster the details came, until she was spilling them out one after the other. She told them about Malachite and running through the Everfree. She told them about Paul Velchek's betrayal, his manipulation with mood-altering drugs and a remote control he'd snuck into the design of her body. Through it all, her parents urged her to go on, to continue comforting her all the while. She could see the horror on their faces at times, the anger and the sadness. She tried to stop, only to have them give her nudge after nudge until everything came out. It felt like she was draining an infection, and it hurt, but it also lightened her burdens.
And now Malachite is probably dead.
Now Erin was getting to the root of what had been bothering her the most this night, what she'd been trying her hardest not to think about. According to the rumors she'd heard from the medical staff in the infirmary, that's what Celestia now believed.
So many times I wish something would happen to him. He would get caught by the princesses and knocked away, or he'd get crippled in a fight with the guards or something. I was hoping the tide would hurt him, and when he left to go fight it,
She then looked up at her parents, almost expecting to see revulsion in their eyes and mildly surprised to see only sympathy instead.
he went to try and save our world, and now he's dead, and I hated him so much.
Aaron was crying again, though not as hysterically as before. These were tears of guilt and regret as she lay on her bed with her mother sitting next to her, stroking her mane. Her father sat on her other side, rubbing her back and trying to be comforting.
I should have told him that I accepted his apology, that he was forgiven.
Was he? Did you forgive him?
No.
Then you did the right thing. Even if it turned out this way, you did the right thing.
Erin nodded, mutely. Intellectually, she knew her father was right, but there was still that guilt, sitting like a cold lump of iron in her chest. It didn't change the fact that she still hated and feared Malachite, even though he was likely gone.
It's not like I didn't tell anyone about what he did, or how I felt. I told Twilight and the others. They know. They've been helping me through this.
I'm glad. No one should have to go through something like that alone. The three of them kept talking, and eventually the subject changed to more peaceful topics. Friends, family, and plans for the future. Erin talked, yawning more and more frequently as time went on until she finally drifted off with her head in her mother's lap at slightly after 3 in the morning. Her parents moved extremely carefully, using the skills they'd honed raising 3 children and helping with 4 grandchildren, gently rearranging her on the bed without waking her. Quietly, they left the room, leaving their daughter to sleep and recover. In spite of the previous day's momentous events, a perfectly ordinary Canterlot sun rose just as it had for centuries, barring the occasional disruption by discord or nightmare moon. It rose on its stately course through the day, and was a few minutes before noon position when the sober and dignified air of the halls and corridors of Canterlot Castle were disrupted by the sound of pounding hooves. Erin ran, earning herself plenty of disapproving glares from the guards and the palace staff. She didn't care. She simply ran on, moving at her best speed and occasionally sliding out of control on the polished floors to crash into the walls before recovering and moving off again. The guards outside of Celestia's quarters forced her to wait impatiently for minutes that seemed like hours while they checked to see if the princess would receive her. Finally, she was allowed in. Celestia was in her sitting room, a cup of tea and a stack of scrolls beside her as she rested on some cushions spread along the floor. Erin trotted in, frantic with the news she had been carrying. Erin, what's...
They found him!
Celestia blinked in surprise. Him, Malachite.
Yes, or should I say they found the body he made, and it's still alive.
Erin had been eating ravenously in the Harmonics cafeteria when Maggie had found her to tell her the news. No doubt she had intended it as a warning, to let her know from a friendly face that Malachite was still alive, but Erin had almost immediately jumped up and ran off to tell Celestia. She wasn't sure why the news that Malachite had survived had made her want to tell the princess so urgently. She hoped it was only because she knew Celestia would want to know as soon as possible, and not because a living Malachite would ease the burden of her guilt. But she just wasn't sure. Is he... How is he?
I'm not sure, Princess. I didn't ask. I'm sorry.
Where is he?
The center of the tide. The initial impact site. That's not all, Princess. The tide is still alive.
That little tidbit she'd heard in the cafeteria before Maggie had found her with the news of Malachite's survival. It was all anyone was talking about, but the initial atmosphere of despair had washed away quickly once news had arrived about how little of it was apparently left. What? Celestia's head snapped up, eyes narrowed, and Erin took an instinctive step back.
Just barely, though, as far as we can tell. There's just a small bit of it left. that they've found in the center under the stone. It's growing again, but it's only about, I'd say maybe the size of the council chambers from what they've told me.
Come with me. Celestia got to her hooves and walked quickly to the door. On the way, she pulled off her chest piece and dropped it with a clang to the floor of her chambers. Aaron trotted along to keep up with her.
You don't have to worry about the tide, Princess. Now that it's this small, we can take care of the rest of it ourselves.
This thing may have cost me my student and friend, Aaron. I will finish this myself.
Uh, yes, Princess.
She'd never seen Celestia so severe before, not even when she'd confronted what she'd thought was face sprites in the Everfree Forest all those weeks ago. It was more than a little frightening. She followed along beside the princess, who was now trailing several guards who had quietly fallen in behind her as she stalked through the halls of Canterlot Castle. Celestia's intensity excluded any chance for conversation, so Aaron decided to just stay silent. The door to the building that housed the gate to Colorado was flung open just as Celestia reached it, and the startled ponies inside barely had time to acknowledge their princess's presence before she lifted the various magic-storing torques from the racks on the wall. There were 8 in all, and Celestia turned to the unicorn who was attending the desk. These are fully charged. The stunned unicorn nodded mutely. Thank you, my little pony. Celestia lowered one of the torques around her neck, where regalia had been minutes before. The rest she simply carried beside her with magic. The gateway to China was still up and running, the equestrians allowing the various human scientists and engineers to use the 2 gateways in Equestria as a shortcut between the 2 locations on Earth. Celestia walked straight through, ignoring the startled guards on either side. Aaron trotted along at her side, soon finding herself once again in China, the sky dark, the sun on this part of the Earth having long since set. Aaron squawked in surprise as Celestia's magic lifted her onto her back, between the broad white wings. Then she let out a shocked squeal as the princess launched herself into the air, leaving her despairing unicorn and earth pony guards behind. Hold on. Aaron buried her face in the odd, flowing mane, hugging the princess around the neck. There was a bright flash and a moment of disorientation, then another, and now even the Pegasi guards were left far behind. Towards the center, you said. Aaron nodded woozily, then realized that Celestia couldn't see her.
Yes, Princess.
They teleported another 6 times, and Celestia burned through 2 of the torques, dropping them without ceremony and fitting another one around her neck each time. Aaron looked ahead as much as she could, though her eyes were watering from the wind and she was shivering with the cold. Up ahead, she could just barely make out a tiny point of light in the pitch black.
There, Princess, just ahead and to your left.
Celestia turned slightly and angled downward. As the light got closer, Aaron could make out the large portable floodlights that they had placed there, in a rough circle perhaps 60 feet in diameter. Next to that circle was a crude, prefabricated shack that no doubt housed the scientists, engineers, and whatever equipment they didn't want exposed to the elements. Several large generators had been set up, and there were trucks, helicopters, and even a few smaller cars parked haphazardly around. Aaron could see the large number of headlights in the distance, coming from both east and west, converging on the site. Humanity had learned its lesson, she guessed, and was racing here in force to kill off what was left of the tide before it had a chance to recover. Celestia's landing caused a brief panic amongst those humans outside, many of whom were either setting up generators or assembling other equipment. They all stared in amazement as the princess stood, radiant and strong in the darkness. A cameraman was filming everything, possibly for a documentary. He turned the camera towards them, and Aaron tried unsuccessfully to hide behind Celestia's mane. He is here! Celestia lifted Aaron off her back and sat down on the gray stone.
That's what I'd heard, Princess. You may want to check the building over there.
Celestia marched in, ignoring the startled guard. Aaron smiled apologetically at him.
She's royalty and she's got a lot on her mind.
The guard, looking confused, and said something in presumably Chinese. Aaron blinked at him, not understanding, then shrugged and walked in behind the princess. The interior of the building was more or less as she expected it to be. The prefabricated plywood walls held hastily assembled metal shelves, on which rested a variety of tools and equipment. Several cots lined the walls, a few of them occupied. A large table was set up, and the group of men and women seated around it were staring at Celestia in surprise. And then she saw Malachite. Erin gasped in shock when she saw what was left of the pseudo-alicorn. Malachite's body lay in a heap on some cushions on the floor, reduced to a mere sad shadow of his former self. He was lying on his right side, and his left side was badly scarred. His legs on that side were mostly gone, and the wing was missing entirely. His right legs had fared only slightly better, ending in stumps below the knee. The billowing face-bright mane and tail were gone, and in their place was a short growth of stubby, black hair, looking sad and pathetically out of place on the once majestic frame. But worst of all were his eyes, completely devoid of any understanding or intellect, blinking and rolling around randomly. What remained of his limbs were also moving, in aimless fits and starts that reminded Erin of how an infant would sometimes move when it was learning fine motor control. Celestia was already kneeling at Malachite's side, horn glowing, the golden light cascading down his scarred hide. His eyes locked onto her for a while, and then rolled away again. After a few minutes, the princess sighed. There is very little left of him. The elements did what they could to heal him, and the core of his mind is intact after a fashion. But his memories, thoughts, and sense of self are all gone. The Malachite we knew is dead. Erin moved closer, looking down at Malachite, the emotional turmoil in her heart leaving her uncertain how she felt about this development. As much as he wanted to be immortal, he may have preferred death over this. Celestia reached out with a hoof, stroking his neck as the green alicorn stared blankly at her. I've just noticed he doesn't have a cutie mark. I wonder if that was a conscious choice on his part, or a simple oversight. I guess I'll never know now. Erin saw the pain in her eyes, and her heart went out to the princess. She bore no love for Malachite. In fact, the pity she felt for him was only just starting to replace her former fear and hatred. But she understood pain and loss when she saw it, and the princess was obviously suffering. Erin didn't know what to say, so instead she knelt by her side, pressing her shoulder against Celestia's folded white leg in a gesture that she hoped would prove comforting. Celestia looked down at her, startled, and then smiled through her tears, hugging Erin to her side with a wing. They stayed like that for a few moments, while the humans in the building shuffled uncomfortably around behind them. Finally, the princess stood and folded her wing back against her side. I shall take him to Canterlot with me. Please, keep him as comfortable as you can. The stallion helped to save your world, after all. The humans nearby, the ones who understood her, nodded and assured her that he would be well cared for until she returned. Good. Now take me to what's left of the black tide. There was a small area outside marked by floodlights and flags drilled into the stone that had once formed the tide itself. Celestia stared into the center of the circle, frowning with concentration. It was a circle perhaps 50 feet in diameter, and she could sense the same presence as before from under that stone. Yes, it is still here, though vastly reduced. A pity that the elements didn't finish it off. Though, the fact that it still lives gives me the chance to do so myself. She launched herself into the air, gathering power from the 6 remaining torques she had brought with her. Once again, Celestia blazed like a sun, lighting up the night as she hovered over the edge of the remains of the tide. She poured her power into the center of it, and the stone shell glowed red before it crackled and melted. Inside, the tide itself flinched back in a truly revolting fashion, squirming and roiling in the stone that now imprisoned it. She poured more and more of her energy into it, stopping only when she hit the rock behind it. As before, it tried to stop her with a psychic assault. This time, however, it was far too weak, and she brushed off the counterattack with contempt. She burned it fiercely, drilling with her magic into the rock surrounding the tide, continuing to pour rage and grief into her assault long past the point where the last remnant of it had been reduced to ashes. Minutes later, all that remained was a glowing bowl of semi-molten rock 60 feet in diameter at the ridge. Celestia cast out with her mind once again and detected nothing. The tide was now well and truly dead. She landed, discarding the now exhausted magic storing torques. She turned to smile at the crowd of stunned humans behind her. I seem to have exhausted my magic, and it's quite a long way back to Equestria. Could I trouble you for some transportation?
And then what happened?
Twilight sat up in her bed. The 6 friends were all in the same room, each restricted to their beds by stern, no-nonsense nurses. Applejack and Dash had learned the hard way that they were still far too weak to simply get past their white-garbed guardians.
We came back. It seems a little anticlimactic, but that's all there was to it. We were loaded into a truck with malachite, and they drove us back to the gateway. It took hours.
What about Malachite?
Pinkie Pie asked in between sips of chocolate malt that she'd somehow managed to get into the room. Erin shook her head.
I don't know what happened to Malachite after that. Celestia took him somewhere, and I didn't think it was any of my business to ask what her plans were.
Erin didn't know what to think of Malachite. Her fading feelings of hate, anger, and fear were twisted up with the guilt, pity, and shame she'd felt seeing what had happened to him. That she'd wished him harm, and then he'd been so badly hurt defending the Earth wasn't something she felt she'd be able to shake anytime soon, if ever. He'd abused her greatly, but he faced the tide in an attempt to save the world and suffered much worse than she had in doing so. He'd been arrogant, condescending, and cruel to her. But now there was none of that left. His mind an empty shell. And in the end, his sacrifice had saved the Earth, though his arrogance had almost doomed it at the same time. Her feelings couldn't settle down, swirling around in a big mess in her chest. She pushed the thoughts aside, deciding to concentrate on her friends instead.
So when do you guys think you'll be getting out of here? We've got less than a week before my mom forces Thanksgiving on you guys. You're still all planning on coming, right?
Sure! I never miss my first human party!
Well, it's not really a party so much as a holiday gathering. It's a time to get together with friends and family, to talk and eat and think about all the things you're grateful for.
It sounds lovely. I'd love to come.
The others quickly reaffirmed their desire to go.
It's too bad the rest of my family can't come too. I think my nieces would love to meet you guys.
You should ask Maggie if you can bring them. Nothing more important than family.
What about friends?
That's family.
Erin let her friends bicker for a little while, feeling better just by being near them.
I have an announcement, guys.
All eyes turned to her, and she shuffled her hooves uncomfortably before she spoke.
The Ascent Labs will be done with their repairs in the next couple of days, and, after Thanksgiving, going to turn back into a human.
She glanced around, surprised to see only acceptance on her friends' faces. Except for Pinkie Pie, who was pouting slightly and crossing her forelegs across her chest.
I'm still gonna call you Sunflower.
That's fine. I was afraid you'd be upset.
Why would we be upset? You make a good pony, but you're still a human. It makes sense you'd want to change back.
The others agreed, and Erin felt some relief.
I've already talked it over with Maggie and Dr. Fisher. The Ascent Lab here can only be used for what they call official business, which counts me turning back to a human. But I told them I also want to study magic, so, well, after a while they'll let me turn back into a pony again. A real pony this time instead of a fake one.
How are they gonna do that? I thought they didn't know how equestrian ponies worked.
Well, Malachite left a bunch of data behind before he blew stuff up. We know a lot about a pony anatomy now, and the only thing to decide is what kind of pony should I be first?
First? What do you mean?
Well, I want to study each type of pony magic, so that means I have to spend time as each kind. So, should I be an earth pony, unicorn, or Pegasus first?
Pegasus, we're the coolest.
Why?
Well, we can fly, first of all.
Twilight laughed, holding up a hoof.
We'll take Pegasi coolness superiority as a given. I meant, why choose? You can make yourself a combination of all three, like Malachite did.
Oh, I honestly hadn't thought of that. It's a good idea, I guess, but
But what?
I don't know how comfortable I am being that similar to Malachite.
I guess I didn't think about that. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a good suggestion.
That's not important, silly fillies! Now that the tide is gone, we need to have a party!
Humanity is way ahead of you there, Pinky.
Say what you will, they have nice televisions here.
Lynn made a wordless noise of agreement, watching the screen in the room.
As you can see, I'm here in a Trafalgar Square, where the celebration shows no sign of slowing down, let alone stopping.
A pretty young reporter in a yellow jacket and skirt took center stage on the screen. A group of rambunctious people wandered behind her, some of them wearing fake unicorn horns on their heads, some wearing fake Pegasus wings on their jackets, and a few brave souls wearing both.
The cold isn't keeping people indoors, not these days. Nothing seems to be able to dull anyone's enthusiasm.
It's hard to believe it's all over.
Now, they haven't confirmed it's over yet.
Lynn slapped him lightly on the arm. Why can't you ever be optimistic?
Because I like being a pessimist. It's more fun being wrong as a pessimist than if you're wrong as an optimist.
He grinned at her, and she rolled her eyes at him. The video of Celestia blasting what was left of the tide had been rebroadcast on every channel, alternating with footage of the light of the elements crawling across the tide. Several reports had been cobbled together with speculation on what had happened. Official word was that the face sprites were part of the equestrians' plan to destroy the tide, some odd magical spell that they'd created so that the elements would actually work this time. Reaction to that was mostly positive, though the occasional kook was interviewed who loudly proclaimed that this proved that the equestrians were evil or satanic or had been in league with the tide from the beginning. Like the latest one declaring their conspiracy theories to the camera.
I'd wish they'd stop interviewing these people.
Anyone who's not an idiot knows better than to listen to them.
There's a surprising number of idiots in this world.
Said the pessimist.
Granted.
They watched the celebrations on the television for a while longer, until John broke the silence again.
I should have bought stocks in a fireworks company.
Maggie was more tired than she'd ever been in her life, excluding after her children were born. The 2 days since the elements of harmony had been used, the tide had seen massive numbers of scientists come through, all on their way to China to try and study the remains of what had once been the Earth's greatest threat. The now destroyed central core of the tide wasn't the only remaining pocket of the creature that had been left intact by the elements of harmony. Surveys were finding more and more of it, from tiny little drops of it to large pools, all encapsulated in the stone, and, without the signal that the princesses had told them about, completely inert. It would take decades to dig it all out and destroy it, if they even could find it all. That was bad news, number one, and one that was being kept quiet for now. No need to ruin everyone's celebrations quite yet, after all. Bad news number two was much more personal. Maggie rubbed at her temples, wondering how she was going to break this particular bit of bad news to a couple of people she'd really enjoyed getting to know. The married couple sitting across the room from her watched her expectantly and warily. Maggie decided to just be blunt about it. There was too much going on in an attempt to be overly tactful.
You can go home now, if you want.
What do you mean? I mean, Don't get me wrong, we're not complaining, but
News of Ascent has leaked. That damned film company somehow managed to get some video files past security, including Erin stating that she was a human turned into a pony during the party shortly after humanity arrived in Equestria.
Maggie remembered that statement vaguely, though Erin's terrible karaoke shortly after that had nearly driven it from her memory.
And someone who works for us and should have known better has started talking to reporters. The news is all over the place now. I'm afraid your daughter is going to be a little bit of a star for this foreseeable future.
Oh God, they know her name?
Let me show you.
Maggie clicked the remote. The large screen in the conference room turned on to a newscast that she'd recorded earlier. A handsome older man in a blue suit was sitting behind a desk, looking calmly into the camera.
The latest shocking news from Project Harmonix is this video, and the accompanying information obtained by sources on the inside. We've confirmed with various anonymous sources inside the Harmonix compound that there was another project in the works, one called Ascent, the purpose of which was to use experimental nanotechnology to turn one young woman into a pony in order to gather information from Equestria prior to diplomatic relations being opened. That young woman's name? According to our sources, it's Erin Olsen.
The video switched to an older picture of Erin, a few years out of date but still quite obviously her. Lynn let out a gasp of dismay.
You may know her better as Sunflower. That's right. According to our sources, the pony who traveled from India to Colorado and later showed up in the small town of Rockwell with a bunch of other ponies was apparently once a human. Officials at the Harmonix Lab, as well as the International Committee for Human Survival, have all declined to comment, but we have pretty compelling evidence that this is the case.
does Erin know?
Maggie paused the broadcast.
I told her this morning. She didn't take it well.
That was stating it mildly, as Erin first reacted by laughing hysterically, then stomping and cursing in anger, and finally going off to sulk in a nice hot bath for a while. That wasn't even counting the hoof she'd kicked through the sheetrock in her bedroom.
Here are your phones and tablets. No need to keep you cut off anymore. I'd advise a strict no comment reply to any questions by reporters, though.
Well, I'm not going anywhere until we sort this out and make sure Erin's okay and human again.
Lynn nodded, and then her eyes widened. We need to call the boys. They'll be worried sick.
Oh God, you're right. Oh, and check this out. 217 missed calls on my phone. 357 new emails.
Lynn checked her own phone, blanching with shock at what she saw waiting for her.
I'm guessing the reporters figured out who we are.
Most likely. We've moved your sons and their families to safe houses for the time being to keep them away from the swarm of reporters.
Oh, thank God for that. Lynn started dialing. Hi, sweetie? It's Mom. Yes. Slow down. Hold on, yes, I know, I saw. John shook his head as his wife was peppered with questions.
That would be Alan. He is the one who always demanded answers.
Todd, actually. No, I was talking with your father. Yes, he's here. That's why I was talking to him.
When is Erin scheduled to be turned back?
John ignored his phone as it started to vibrate its way across the table.
Well, the lab will be up and running in 2 days. Another day to test and shake things down. And then Erin can go in whenever she's ready.
Ah, good. How long will it take to turn her back?
Approximately a week, and potentially 10 days.
Hold on, dear. I've got to talk to someone. Lynn turned to Maggie. That's not acceptable. She'll miss Thanksgiving. No, John, we can't have Thanksgiving together this year as a family. I don't care if Aaron is a pony or human. I want us all together. Maggie, can you arrange to have our sons and their families brought here?
Yes, I suppose. Assuming they want to come.
I'll take care of that. Trust me. Lynn put the phone back up to her ear. So, Todd, here's what's going to happen. Robert Thompson cleared his throat as he stepped up to the podium. He held up his hand, and the restless reporters settled down immediately.
Ladies, gentlemen, I thank you for coming. I have a statement that I'd like to make, and then I'll take a handful of questions. I ask that you hold your questions until the end. Thank you.
He took a sip of water, pulled out his notes, and then launched into his statement.
In the early days of fighting the tide, we realized that it was using nanotechnology to convert terrestrial matter into more of itself. You all know that. What you don't know is that one of the early projects we started was to use and enhance our own existing Earth nanotechnology, in order to try and fight the tide on equal footing. It proved less than successful, but it yielded other results that, if it weren't for the tide, would have made life on Earth much more interesting. We called it Project Ascent, and that's what I'm here to tell you about tonight. Dr. Herman Fisher and his team are the leads on this. Dr. Fisher is, quite frankly, the most incredible genius I've ever met. The entire project was his baby, start to finish. He created the nanomachines, he created the mainframe and the remote communications array that controlled them, and he created the routines that allow us to convert matter from one form to another. His team didn't stop there, however. He theorized that he could use a scent to change an organism's biology to do things as mundane as healing paper cuts, to as extreme as modifying humanity to survive under harsher conditions. That was one of our fallbacks in regards to Project Harmonics. If we found a world that was almost habitable to humanity, then perhaps we could modify ourselves to be able to better survive in that environment.
Robert kept to himself the fact that the Ascent nanomachines that Dr. Fisher used were heavily influenced by damaged and inactive black tide nanomachines. Anything that touched even remotely on the tide caused unease and fear in the general population, and he didn't want to start a panic. What he'd told these reporters already had more than a few of them on edge.
And then we found Equestria. This wonderful world that fitted all of our needs, except that it was occupied by ponies. Or pony sapiens, as the scientists have been calling them on the news. And as we later found out, also occupied by several other sapient species as well. We asked Dr. Fisher if we could turn volunteers into ponies in order to meet and assess the locals, to determine the best approach to opening diplomatic ties with Equestria. We had one shot to make a good impression, and we wanted as much data as we could before we took that shot. In order to keep things at least somewhat quiet, it was decided that only Project Harmonic staff would be allowed to volunteer. In the end, only one woman, a brave young lady named Erin Olson, volunteered to undergo the long and somewhat risky procedure to change herself into a pony. Coupled with that was the further risk of exploring a completely new world, full of new risks, and, well, Erin proved to be quite a treasure, I can tell you. She faced all of that without even blinking. In the end, the information she retrieved, and the good relations she established with the Equestrian government, led directly to the Equestrians helping us to defeat the tide and save our world. Quite simply, we would still be planning an evacuation of the planet if it weren't for Erin. And that's why I am asking all of you to have the common courtesy to leave her alone, and not bombard her or her family with questions, requests for interviews, or other requests. She wants to lead a normal, quiet life, and I think she deserves our respect, and she deserves at the very least that. Now, are there any questions?
Hands shot up in the air, and voices were raised, shouting questions in English flavored with dozens of different accents. Robert pointed to one person at random.
Yes, you. What's your question?
Mr. Thompson, is the change permanent?
Absolutely not. Aaron will be starting the process to turn back into a human in a couple of weeks, now that all the excitement is dying down. You, the lady in the purple. You, the woman in the purple sweater. You have a question?
Yes, sir. Why a couple of weeks? Why the delay?
Due to a classified due to a classified request by the equestrian government. They had, well, a little something they wanted us to do for them. Considering all they've done for us, naturally, we said yes.
It sounds like Ascent can cure disease and injuries on an unprecedented scale. Will people from all walks of life be given a fair chance at it? Or is it going to be reserved for the rich and the well-connected?
Good question. Yes, a scent can, potentially, cure pretty much any disease and repair any injury, including old age. At the moment, we only have one working facility, which is a prototype and not open to general public use, though we have several more opening up soon around the world. The cost is immense, but we're using what's left of the International Emergency Fund to finance it. Once it's all up and running, we'll start running people through, starting with terminally ill children and working our way up to terminally ill adults.
There was a brief explosion of questions that Robert silenced by holding up his hands.
I'm sorry, that was the decision. Children first, terminal illnesses first. As much as I'd like to give back sight to every blind person, we have to take the most critical cases first, and children are obviously the most urgent of those cases. We won't be able to save everyone, not until we get many more facilities open and a lot more staff trained. But we're going to do the best we can. If you're wondering if a Sint will be available for things like making people young again, the answer is, eventually, yes. Once we no longer have younger people with terminal illnesses. That may seem unfair to older people, but the thought is that the children deserve a chance to live as long as the older people do. I'm sorry if that seems unfair, but that's the way it's going to be. At least on the official side. We will also be licensing out the technology to businesses in order to increase the number of facilities as rapidly as possible and to increase innovation. Unfortunately, while we will certainly be setting guidelines and regulations for those businesses and how they're to operate, we won't be able to stop them from charging for their services, which may set the cost of using a scent-based technology out of range for many people. That's regrettable, but it was determined that this was the best way to get the technology out there, and to rapidly get the costs down. Next question, you, with the yellow tie.
Is it true that you intended that all humans migrating to Equestria would be turned into ponies, perhaps against their will, in collusion with the equestrian government?
Dead silence reigned for a few seconds.
What the hell are you talking about? Are you insane? Where in the world did you get that idea? Even if we wanted to, we don't have the resources to turn 7 billion humans into ponies. You, in the gray suit, you're up.
Thank you, sir. If we manage to open up enough ascent centers that we can actually keep people eternally young, doesn't that mean we'll have a population boom? What are the plans to deal with that excess population?
A good question. We're still going ahead with the plans to settle in Zanabra. Though we've offered to buy the land directly from the zebras ourselves, relieving the equestrians of the necessity of trading their own land for it. We are still in negotiation on a final price. The equestrians are still offering assistance in getting the land more habitable for us, and now we can afford to take our time and really plan things out. In addition, Project Harmonix is still running. We're sure to find other worlds out there, habitable ones. The United Nations is setting up a special group that will handle requests for people to migrate, perhaps even to create new nations on these worlds. We are looking at the dawn of an age of unprecedented human growth and achievement, folks. It's going to be exciting. Next question. You, in the front, here.
Speaking of harmonics, now that we no longer need the equestrians, are we going to be canceling the agreements to allow them access to the new worlds that we find? Are we still building them ascent labs?
We are not changing the agreements. Next.
How can you justify that, though? We have people here who are sick or who have lost their homes, and you want to waste the resources on ponies?
This is the last non-assent question I'll take, because this needs to be addressed. We made this agreement with them when they had everything to lose and we had everything to gain. Now that we're in better shape, do you honestly think we should just cancel the agreement? Forget for a moment that the only reason that breaking the treaty is even an option is because of the bravery and sacrifice of the equestrians. Forget how much we owe them for saving our world. Forget all of that and consider this instead. These new species that we've met, this is their first impression of us. They're just getting to know humanity. Are you seriously suggesting that the first thing we do is break a signed treaty with them when the ink is barely dry? Have you so little shame? No, we're not going to do that. We are better than that. Now, I'm going to the next question, and if you continue disrupting this conference, you will be escorted out.
The press conference went on for another half an hour after that, until Robert finally had enough and called an end to the questions. He went off stage and back into a small room, collapsing into a sofa with a sigh as his assistant came up and gave him a glass of water.
Thank you, Becky. Do me a favor, would you? Call Maggie Henson and see if Erin would be willing to hold a press conference or do an interview of her own soon. It might help dispel some of the interest if someone can ask her some of these questions directly.
Will do, boss.
Becky left the room. Robert rubbed his temples as he lay back on the small couch. In just a few days, everything had changed. For the better, of course. He wasn't complaining. Things like Ascent getting leaked before they were ready were really small potatoes compared to the fact that the tide was no longer a threat. Still, it looked like he'd have to keep putting off that vacation he'd promised his wife over 3 years ago. She was not going to be happy.
I really don't want to do this.
Erin groused as the pony makeup specialist eyed her critically.
I know, Erin. I only asked because, if they get some answers, they might just be satisfied and start to leave you alone.
And how likely do you think that is?
Not very. Still, it's worth a shot, don't you think?
Erin sighed, and then grunted as another pony pulled the sash tight on her dress, an emerald green number that had been put together at the last minute by a human designer. It looked nice, but it was extremely uncomfortable. She longed for one of the dresses that Rarity had made for her, but this had all come together at the last minute, and she hadn't thought of grabbing a wardrobe before she left. Being a pony had sure made me lazy in packing, she thought ruefully. There was a knock on the door, and a young man poked his head in.
Whenever you're ready, Miss Olson.
Erin's mouth went dry as she walked towards the door.
Break a leg.
Erin smiled weakly, and then followed the aide through the back of the stage. Susan Chang was a popular middle-aged talk show host, one that her mother loved. It had been agreed on that she would do the interview with Erin, on her usual set, but without the live audience. Only the camera crew, director, and other required personnel were there. Erin walked out on stage without any kind of pomp or circumstance, and smiled nervously at Susan Chang as the human woman knelt down on the stage and extended her hand. Erin put out her hoof, and they shook.
You look nervous.
I am.
That's hard to believe after all you've been through. Still, I get it. Don't worry, this isn't going to be live. We can cut out anything you don't like. Does that make you feel better?
It does.
Good. Why don't you sit here on this couch? I'll take the chair, and we can get started.
Erin climbed onto the sofa, then lay down on her belly with her legs tucked up. She smiled again at the woman seated across from her, who patted her comfortingly, and turned to the camera.
We recording?
Yes, Sue. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, Erin, we're going to get started now, alright?
Sounds good.
Susan cleared her throat and faced one of the cameras on the set.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special show and a very special guest waiting for you this morning. This is the one and only time I'm only going to be able to pre-record a show rather than a live one. But I think you'll agree that my guest today is worth it. You may know her as Sunflower, the pony who crossed the world, or you may even know her as Erin Olsen, the brave young woman who explored a new world and ended up finding allies we needed to save our own. She's here today, and she is willing to tell us a little bit about what happened. Erin, why don't you start?
Where would you like me to start?
Why not the beginning, right before you became a pony?
All right.
Erin then marshaled her thoughts. She turned to the camera as well and said,
Hi. My name is Erin also. Tongue work. Hi. My name is Erin Olsen, also known as Sunflower. And the first thing you need to know is, before I became a pony, my job was incredibly boring.
All this and more, airing this Sunday, after WWE Super Slam!
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, that's done.
Fucking commercials!
Yes.
Forest Rain, where's the whiskey you promised?
And then stay tuned for we will have one last chapter, the big old epilogue. And then we'll finally be over with Project Sunflower.
I think I misplaced the whiskey.
Well,
At the
It's
end
a
of the
good
epilogue.
story, though.
seeing that Forest Rain has dropped the ball again in bringing the whiskey, I have 4 varieties to choose from.
Oh, it's okay. I've got whiskey too.
Yeah, well, I haven't tasted a whiskey that's been good yet.
Well, good to you.
Then again, I like girly drinks, so.
Try some of the Crown Royal flavors. They're
Yeah.
so some of those are pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I like
two
my
things
Mai
were really
Tais
funny.
and pina coladas with some Malibu. That's
Two-
my kind of thing.
I found 2 things really funny with this reading. One, reporter number 2.
Female
Which I was-
reporter number 2?
I was kind of wondering if Cinder was going to be like, "Excuse me, sir, continue." And then the other thing was fucking Winchester does this director role, but whips out a fucking flawless Midwest accent.
He is Midwest.
Well, yes, but he doesn't have the traditional Midwest Chicago bullshit accent. Anyway,
Oh.
that's all. That's funny.
Honestly, the second director line, I honestly felt like I was starting to get that kind of announcer thing into it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes, Sue, whenever you're ready to start WWE Super Slam.
Well, I have to say, it's been a while since I felt compelled to use a New Yorker accent.
I mean, no, that wasn't the goal. He just does. I'm going for like a been through military, has no time for your shit voice. And
There's something to be said about someone who projects.
but
It just, I could listen to like a smooth jazz station like all day with that voice. Like, I just would not change the station. That's it.
So,
Look, that's all of my male
Cinder.
voices. I'm sorry.
so what you're
Cinder.
saying is Cinder
Cinder,
gives
take me
Morgan
to the
Freeman a
A
run
train.
for his money.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Take me to the A train, Cinder.
I said that you give Morgan Freeman a run for his money.
Oh, no, not even close. No.
That's a different kind of flavor. This
No,
sounds a lot
I'm
younger.
nowhere near that
Morgan
level of
Freeman's
sexy.
older.
I'm nowhere near that level of sexy voice. I don't think anyone is.
I mean, I would be perfectly happy if you narrated the rest of my life.
I'm sure Forrest Rain would too, but then she'd be distracted all the time.
Yeah, it'd be hard.
just he's working, and all of a sudden she hears, "Forest Rain, close your hole."
What?
What?
Oh, right. I haven't been to work for so long that I forgot what that means.
You forgot to close your hole. Got it.
I forgot.
What does that mean for
I am
everyone else that has no
concerned.
context?
Do you really want me to answer that while we're on call?
I mean, so I work in a hotel,
Okay.
and when we hang stuff from points that are built into the ceiling.
Okay.
But some parts of the ceiling aren't open. They're covered by a soffit. So in the soffit, there are holes that are cut. And there's like little, they're like portholes that have like little, fucking like doors almost on them. It's just basically like a piece of metal that sits in it so that it looks like it's a closed part of the ceiling as opposed to an open hole.
Okay.
And when you go around and you're like taking stuff down, if you're like me, you'll forget to close your hole.
And then,
Gotcha.
and then your lovely neighborhood freelancer that everybody in the hotel that works there knows by now goes and makes fun of you for it.
Yeah.
It's okay. I know that feel. It's all right.
Pets.
I mean, not the close your hole part, but like the whole like coworkers making fun of you for doing stupid shit part.
So what you're saying is you haven't, or you are good at closing your hole?
Yes.
Well, I'm sure that could be fixed.
And on that bombshell, let's go into outros. So we'll start with Cinder.
Oh, I regret nothing. I'm sorry.
Dear God.
I love you, Cinder. You're great.
Occasionally I forget how incredibly evil Cinder is.
Oh, I never do.
Too cute to be evil.
Yeah, until you
Cinder's
pull out
locked
the
me in her
grenades.
basement too many times.
Excuse me.
Sometimes I've just got to remind people no, I'm not.
Ooh, are you gonna do like that Vincent Price and Thriller bit there for a second?
I don't think anyone could top that though.
Vincent
Can
Price?
you dig it?
Alrighty, and next up to begin to attempt to topple that wonderful performance by Cinder, Sora, your outro.
Oh, you want to go there? We can go
My
there.
outro. I thought it was like, is that the same as like shout out to whatever?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes, it is.
Well, shout out to the person that designed Pinkie Pie because I have been struggling with her for like the whole hour we've been reading. So yeah. That's
Struggling with Pinkie Pie or struggling with the person that designed Pinkie Pie? Because like the
Oh,
second
struggling with
indicates that-
Pinkie Pie.
Second indicates that maybe kidnapping isn't the best move.
I think kidnapping's
Oh, it's okay. Everyone knows that I'm a struggle.
Sora's just over there like reading into her microphone, but every time she turns off the microphone, she just like turns and like beats this bag that somebody's encapsulated in and is like, "Shut up!"
Don't forget the 99.
I've got solutions for both of these issues.
Number
I don't
3.
own one.
Oh, you cute Myrtle, you think that could stop me? No one can overcome the punk.
You're right, but this can.
Number 4.
Down with the heretics.
Come at me, Myrtle.
Alrighty.
We shall
it's-
reclaim Jerusalem from you heathens.
Are we just counting how many times he cocks his gun?
Yeah.
Okay.
And speaking of heathens,
Oh,
Forrest Rain, your shoutouts.
Yes. Well, I do believe that this is my fuck off.
I'm sorry, I couldn't do it. I couldn't.
Fuck off.
I can't compete with Cinder. I'm sorry. I don't even have anything to sell this year.
No, you can easily surpass me. You just gotta believe in yourself and apply yourself.
No, every time I start talking, I hear Sora snickering in the background.
Well, aren't you smoother than a piece of butter sliding out of concrete in the middle of July?
Even I ain't that southern.
Sora, I am so sorry for my next comment, but that sounds so stereotypical.
That was the point.
Applejack, you got your countryisms back.
Ah, shoot!
Well, ain't that funner than a barrel of... It's funner than a... Nah, I got nothing.
Oh, good, we're saved.
Alrighty, and I don't think this is gonna happen, but Double R, can you please try to save this horrendous thing we've created?
All right. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna okay. All right. Shout out to all the members of the Winchester Wednesday cast. Cinder's script is Project Sunflower. Can you dig it?
All right, and last
give
but
that a
not
7 out of
last,
10.
last but not last, on to CMC.
Well, I'm sure everything is perfectly fine as we're going into the world of fires, explosions, Mufasa, venison jerky, Eloise, Roan? Who knows? Find out next time.
Wait, did you say Mufasa?
Yes, that's one of the names of my computers.
Long live the king.
And that was the perfect moment to end the stream. But unfortunately, Winchester did not have his next video planned out on what he was going to play. So, I don't know. I guess shit. I'm good at this. We'll play this.
My house in Budapest, my hidden treasure chest, golden grand piano, my beautiful Castillo. You, I'd leave it all. My acres of a land I have achieved. It may be hard for you to stop and believe, but for you, I'd leave it all. Oh, for you, I'd leave it all. Give me one good reason why I should never make a change. Baby, if you hold me, then all of this will go away. My many artifacts, the list goes on. If you just say the word, I'll up and run. No, to you, I'd leave it all. Oh, to you, I'd leave it all. Oh, give me one good reason why I should never make a change. friends and family, they don't understand. They fear they lose so much if you take my hand. But for you, I'd leave it all. Oh, for you, I'd lose it all. Give me one good reason why I should never make a change. Oh, baby, if you hold me, then all of this will go away. Give me one good reason why I should never make a change. Oh, baby, if you hold me, then all of this will go away. My house in Budapest, my hidden treasure chest, golden grand piano, my beautiful Castillo. I'd leave it all. Oh, for you, I'd leave it all.
And thank you all for showing up. It's been fun. Catch us next week for yet another Winchester Wednesdays coming at you at 8:30 Central on next Wednesday, if I didn't already say that. We'll be having more fun and more silliness. Catch you all next time. This is Winchester 572 going 10-7. I'm out. Bye-bye.